guys, it's Margie again, and today I've got another movie review for you of the 2009 film Julie and Julia. Alright, let's jump in. This film starred Meryl Streep, Amy Adams, Chris Messina, Stanley Tucci, Linda Emond, Helen Carey, Marilyn Rajskub, Jane Lynch, Joan Juliet Buck, Crystal Noel, George Botanoff, Vanessa Ferlito, Casey Wilson, Jillian Bach, Andrew Garman, Francis Sturgman, and Deborah Rush. It was directed by Nora Ephron, edited by Richard Marks, who also edited You've Got Mail and As Good as It Gets, music by Andre Desplat, who also did music for The King's Speech and The Ides of March, cinematography by Stephen Goldblatt, who also did cinematography for The Help and The Pelican Brief. Screenplay by Nora Ephron, and we all know who Nora Ephron is. She did screenplays for Sleepless in Seattle and tons of other stuff. Everybody knows who she is. Produced by Nora Ephron, Lawrence Mark also produced Jerry Maguire. Scott Rudin. Yay, Scott Rudin, who has also produced The Village, There Will Be Blood, The First Wives Clubs, which I've done previous reviews of The Village and The First Wives Club, so go check those out. But he just pops up. Like, he has literally produced so many epic films. Anyway, and Eric Steele, who also produced this one. Okay, guys, so the basic plot for this movie is Amy Adams' character is Julie, is feeling, kind of bummed out on life. She's just kind of in a rut, she feels like, and her husband is Chris Messina, and he is trying to, help her. I think they just moved, or she's tired of her job or something. So anyway, she decides to cook all the way through the Julia Stiles cookbook in 365 days. And so it is the story of her journey, and it's also the story of her imagining, and Meryl Streep plays Julia Childs, and it's the story of Amy Adams imagining what Julia is thinking and all this, and it's the story of how Julia Childs created the cookbook and her journey and everything else. So anyway, yeah, it's a lot going on. It's kind of like two stories in one. Meryl Streep played Miss Julia Childs. I thought she had such a great performance. I thought in a few scenes she went a little too over the top with her accent and all of that. But I thought on the whole she had a really, really great performance. I really enjoyed it, and it was so much fun to watch her. Even if you're not a Meryl Streep fan, I think you'll enjoy it. And I think she was very Julia Childs-like. I think she had a great impersonation and everything, and I thought she did a great job. Amy Adams, for me, performance was a little lackluster, because her character was very lackluster, which is writing and everything. I'm going to get to that, but I don't know. She just didn't really do it for me. She came across really nerdy and awkward, and which her character was, but something about this performance didn't really grab me, guys. I mean, there wasn't really, like, she didn't just bomb out, but I don't know. It didn't really grasp me. Let me know. I'm sure many of you loved it. Let me know in the comments. And not trying to kill you, Amy Adams fans, but I didn't think that she had a very lovely performance, to be honest. But again, the role. Anyway, Chris Messina, I thought he did such a great job. I didn't really feel like he had to work that hard on this film, but whether he had to work or not, he still had a great performance, so good for him. Stanley Tucci, I am a huge Stanley Tucci fan. Oh, man, Stanley Tucci. So, he was a huge incentive for me to see this film. I thought Stanley crushed it. I didn't think there was a single thing else he could have done, and my goodness, what movie can you not think of that it's like, if Stanley Tucci's in it, there's something's good about it. I mean, Stanley he is one of the best supporting actors that I can think of. I mean, he just reminds me so much of those iconic supporting actors, like in the 40s and 50s and 60s, like not necessarily comic, but the people where you watch the movie and they just pop up everywhere and you're like, oh, hey, how are you? And they don't get the credit they deserve and all that. That's kind of a rant about Stanley Tucci, but I love Stanley Tucci, and he wraps everything together in every film that he's in. He just supports so beautifully. Not saying that he's not a great actor by himself, but I mean, he is just epic as a supporting actor, and he makes everybody else look fantastic, and that's exactly what he did in Julia and Julia. He had most scenes with Meryl Streep. They fed off of each other wonderfully. I thought most of their chemistry was great, but to me, it was more like I don't know, it was more like kind of a professional relationship than a romantic one, but then their romantic scenes were believable, so I don't know, it just worked. Stanley Tucci just works for me. I love him. Let's talk about direction for this one, guys. I liked the direction pretty well. I felt like there was a couple things that didn't quite work. I felt like it was a little generic, and it didn't just blow me away, but I don't know. It was okay. And I'm not trying to criticize Nora Ephron because I know everybody is like a fan of her, but it didn't blow me away. I thought it was okay, but it didn't just wow me to death. The editing for this I thought was pretty good. I did. Again, could have been a little shorter, but there wasn't like a ton of scenes I'm like, that should have gone, that should have gone. A few scenes could have been shortened, but I say that about most movies, so I thought the editing for this was good on the whole. The music for this by Andre Desplat, I hope I'm saying his name right. I like the music for this very much, and I thought it went perfectly with the movie. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful with the movie. The cinematography for this was lovely. The colors were so rich, and a lot of that is production design, I know, but I mean, the way that his lighting just accented everything and captured everything. I thought the cinematographer for this, Stephen Goldblatt, did a great job, and I thought that was one of the loveliest things probably about the movie for me. The screenplay is by Miss Nora Ephron. Also, I read several critics' reviews of this before I watched this movie, and literally I think the consensus is pretty much unanimous in the fact that everybody wished that Amy Adams and Chris Messina's like whole storyline had basically been omitted, and this had just been a film about Julia Childs. Like, everybody thought that the Julie character was so weak and downcast and just a waste of time, and they loved Meryl as Julia, and they loved how that was directed in Stanley, and they thought all that worked, and they thought that the other side of the story just was awful. So basically they said, why did they do this story? Why did Nora do this story? Why didn't she just have a film about Julia Childs? And I don't totally agree with that, but I pretty much agree with that. Like, I would have completely minimalized Julie's role if I even had her went down that road as a writer, and just had so much about Julia Childs, because you've got the cast that's working, the romance, the story, the writing, and everything for Julia's section was good. So if you've got a good thing, expand, elaborate, like, go far with that. Don't try and, it was just like, the scene and the storylines flip back and forth between each other. Like, 1 minute you're with Julie in present day, and 1 minute you're with Julia, so many years ago. And it's just like, every time that you're with Julia, you're like, yay! And then when the story flips back, you're just like, oh, God. That was kind of how it was for me. So I totally agree with that. And to me, the writing for Julie was very weak. Julie, the character, Amy Adams' character, was weak, and it didn't work for me at all. Like, I just didn't really care for her character at all. I didn't care about her as a character, like, when she, was like, I love you, Julie, and all this. I'm like, you're a stalker. I wasn't thinking, like, oh, that's so sweet, and she's, living her dream and becoming a better person. I'm thinking, you have lost your mind. Like, it just went too far for me, and I know a lot of people really love this movie, but Anyway, the writing for me was probably one of the worst things about it. Let us talk about the Parents' Guide on this one. The language category, we have 1 use of F, 3 use of S, 5 use of B, 1 use of GD, 6 uses of D, 1 use of A, and 1 use of H. There's passionate kissing, but it's all between married people. Yeah. There's smoking of cigarettes and drinking of wine, but other than that, there's nothing else. And there is some cleavage in this film, but violence and gore, not really any. Here's my special notes. Amy Adams is too awkward and nervous and fidgety, and I just felt like she went too far with that. I mean, I know her character was kind of written out that way, but I mean, she was just like so over, like just so awkward and fidgety all the time, and just like so creepy and like kind of stalkery, like I said, and it's just like, no, this doesn't work. And here I have enjoyed the journey, but when the movie's over, you don't really feel satisfied. Totally agree with that. Because, like, the end of the movie, you've been going along with Julia this whole time, and then they just kind of stop off with Julia. They don't really, like, show her success or any of that. And then, the end, well, it's not really a spoiler, but anyway, as I already told you, Amy Adams is just basically like, I love you, Julia, and then it's just, oh, and you're just like, I was pretty bummed out at the ending. I was like, wow, that was entertaining, but when it's over, you're just like, I just wasted kind of my time. I don't know. Except for Stanley Tucci. And Meryl was great. Anyway, loved, though, gotta say, all the beautiful colors in Julia's life. The sets were amazing. They were so beautiful. And I watched an interview with the production designer for this, and he said we were just going for everything, like, beautiful and lush, and it's Paris, and just, oh my gosh, he killed it. You're watching Meryl act, and like your eye just wanders from her to like the wallpaper and like the carpets, and I mean just everything is just so fresh and beautiful. And I loved all the colors because, you know, food is so many different colors, and food is such like a colorful experience. So I loved how he kind of expressed that through the production design. I usually don't touch on that, but this was so fantastic. I had to. And of course, the cinematographer captured everything beautifully. The lighting was ridiculous. I loved it. Because of all the good work that was done on this not so good movie, I'm giving this film 3 stars out of 5. But I watch it again, I seriously doubt it. But, you know, I might. I mean, if I was with somebody and they're like, hey, let's go watch this, I'd be like, well, okay. You know, I mean, it's not something I would, like, seek out. Like, it's not something I would want to own on DVD. But that's just me. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking out my review of the 2009 film Julie and Julia. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought of this review and Julia in the comments. And I will talk to you guys later.